Good evening and welcome to the Fredonia Central School District Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024. We start every meeting with a pledge of allegiance to our flag. I'm going to ask a senior, Aubrey Huber, to come forward and lead us in the pledge. Please, Aubrey. Right? Right up here. Right up here. There you go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Aubrey.
Nice job.
So for those of you in attendance, we always have a senior lead us in the pledge to help set the tone that we're here for our students, and that's our major impetus of being here tonight and what we have declared to do. So we have an agenda for tonight's meeting, a consent agenda. Adoption of the consent agenda upon a motion and a second and affirmative vote by members present approves each and every item so designed. If I could have a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please.
So moved.
Ms. Powell-Fortna and Mr. Hawk? And Mr. Hawk. Is there anything that anyone would like to pull out of the consent agenda for tonight? We also have, by the way, we also have the addendum that is was provided to us tonight, so that will be included. And there are some consent items on that addendum. Is there anything anyone would like to pull off of that? Okay. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. So the board has reserved this time to hear comments from the audience. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, and limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Concerns and comments during this session should be directly related to items listed on the proposed agenda for this meeting. Is there anyone who would like to address the board tonight with any concerns? No? Okay. So we have the minutes from our April 9th meeting. If I could have a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Ms. Hahn, and a second.
Second.
Ms. Gullo. Any comments, questions, corrections on those? If not, all those in favor of approving signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the financial treasurer's report. Mr. Forbes, if we could get the budget status report, the investment report, and the revenue status report.
Yes, and as we typically do, we kind of focus on the dashboard, which has all of those together, but we have a couple other comments on that. So on the dashboard, the estimated expenditure and estimated revenue columns are dated 3/31. Those match the other reports that you got, the budget status report and the revenue status report, so I kept those the same. The change would be on the far right-hand column. It's a 419 budget run, which reflects the budget that we'll be discussing in a few minutes tonight. And that does, we'll get to that in a few minutes. So that won't be 331, that'll be 419 on that one. So on the, a couple things to point out on the dashboard. We received our normal spring, what they call spring sustaining state aid, which is a little over $5 million, which is our first large payment of the year. We also received $133,000 of DLT supplemental lottery aid and gaming aid, $65,000 textbook aid, $21,000 security
Did you go over the investment, I'm sorry, the investment
Correct.
report?
So investments will continue to do good through the March 31st, we're up to 204,000 in investment income, which includes your regular account earnings, which isn't substantial, and then the T-bills, which have been substantial. And we were able to reinvest some of the aid we received in March, so that number will continue to increase for the next 3 months of the school year. So, and the rates are holding steady right now, about 5.25 to 5.27, depending on the term. So,
Yeah, great.
So that has us with your projections that you gave us with the dash report for the ending of 3/31 for the.
yes, I've adjusted for where we are with the revenue right now for that. And you take a look at the dashboard on the second page. Interest income is under use of money, which is the fourth column, fourth row down. So you can see that our budget on the third column from the left is 168,000, and we're estimating for that group of funds right now to be 280,000, and it'll be probably higher when we finish up. So yes, we can focus that.
Any other questions from the board on that, those reports? Okay. If I could have a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
So
Mr. Hall, and his second. Ms. Paul Fortner. Any comments, Mr. Forbes?
Not in that report, thank you.
Everything is good. Any questions from the board on that? All those in favor of accepting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the final 24-25 proposed budget presentation.
Yes, I gave each one of you a copy of that for review tonight. And we'll go over the slides that I have for you since.
Eventually the data will go away, but I can't use it.
So the draft tonight was where we had kind of talked about wanting to get to, which is the essentially at the tax cap at 1.71, which we'll get to in a second. So taking a look at the major expenditure summary, we have salaries and benefits for a little over $1 million, benefits for 322,000. Equipment were actually down from last year, 33,000. Materials and supplies, minimal increase there. Contractual expense up 433,000, and mostly services were down 33,000, and debt service were up 4,250. So that represents a 5.13% increase in spending. And you can see on the bottom, through the 4 drafts we had, we were at 6.7, 5.7, 5.6, and now we're 5.13. A breakdown of the expenditures on the next slide just shows the percentage of the budget that each category is. We frequently talk about how much salary and benefits is of the total budget. You can see in this draft, we're just a little over 70% for salary and benefits, which doesn't allow you a lot of room in the event you need to cut something that's not personnel or benefits, because you don't have a great deal of the percentage of the budget up to do so. The next slide will be a breakdown of salary and benefits between instructional, non-instructional, and the benefits. And getting to the next slide, we'll do staffing. In this draft, we have the resignations that we've seen on previous slides. We also have the inclusion of all the salaries for the positions currently funded by the American Rescue Plan. This budget proposal also includes 4 staff replacements for the retirements, one of whom is eligible for the retirement incentive, an increase of a part-time music position from 0.4 FTE to 1.0 FTE, and the addition of a 1.0 school psychologist. All the new positions we typically estimate at step 6 on the FTA salary schedule.
Just one correction, I think we're talking about the school social worker.
All right, I'm sorry, that should say school social work.
Yep, no worries. I didn't catch it properly, so my fault.
It's not the first place I had that. Must have been thinking about it. Thanks. Salary and benefits, you see the breakdown here. Teachers' retirement and employees' retirement system, those are based on required contributions to the state. Social Security is tied to the wages that you have in the budget draft. Workers' comp, we're in the consortium, and that's also a calculation across all the districts within it. We did have a couple of claims on it this year, so ours did increase. Group life, unemployment, long-term disability, they're all flat. Group health insurance is at 5.2%. The trust itself was only about a 3% increase, but we had to bring in the benefits for the American Rescue Plan individuals, and that's what pumped that up a little bit. So overall, we're up $322,000 or 4.6%. Again, to break down the equipment, materials, and supplies, you can see equipment down 33,000, we mentioned a moment ago, and materials and supplies are up 9,800. That's all supplies district-wide. In terms of actual equipment requests, this is a breakdown by area. You can see the distribution across each of the budget codes. For the instructional areas, I think I mentioned last time that for textbooks, contractual expense, materials and supplies, and equipment in those instructional areas and the individual office areas for the building, we do allow flexibility for the principals to move that around as they see fit, and then to try to be in about the same dollar value that they were in the previous year. So something may be up, like the ELAC instructional equipment request, but something else may be down in another category to kind of compensate for that. Contractual expense and postage services. Big thing here is we had some reduction in our high-cost special ed, so we were able to remove some of the amounts that I had in those codes. On the next slide, we've got a couple of the areas that were significant increases. Our WAVE program, which is the remote learning for high school, 14,000. Occupational education, we're up 3 student slots there to a total of 65 now. Central data processing, which is our computer services through BOCES for the educational side. Athletics contractual expenses, a reflection of increase in transportation, the addition of the unified sports, and also flag football. We had to pick up some additional referee costs, transportation, and so forth. Our out-of-district tuition, that's for high-cost students. Contract cleaners, we have New York State revised the prevailing wage amount for our contract cleaning services to the Resource Center, and because of changes in minimum wage, we've seen an increase over the last couple of years in that area. And then also transportation, which we've talked about on various occasions. Debt service and interfund transfers. The next slide will show the principal and interest breakdown, but essentially it's flat. It's up 4,250. A decrease in debt service, which is a reflection of more principal, less interest. And then we had to budget 2 items in the interfund transfer. One is a $15,000 transfer to cover the non-aidable portion of handicap services in federal fund, and the additional amount is to cover a potential transfer to capital fund. If we get to the point of a capital project within the 24-25 school year, we would have a debt service, small debt service payment, and we need to pick up that amount there. Again, this is the breakdown over the last 4 years, including proposed budget of the projects, the principal and interest, and what the difference is. On the next slide, we've got the proposed budget revenue. In this draft, we still were using the governor's proposal because that did not get cleared until late in the week. Difference there for us pretty much is about $27,000 on the legislative proposal compared to this draft, most of which is in the area of foundation aid. There are also corresponding minor differences in excess costs, which is special education aid, transportation, a very minor change there, our textbook aid, a very minor change there. Was essentially the bulk was in foundation aid. You can see the distribution on the bottom of this slide. State aid percentage of our budget is 49.11, and tax levy is 47.09%. Next slide is the breakdown of the revenue sources as a percentage of budget. You can see our school tax and state aid, which I just mentioned, 49% and 47%. So really, out of those 2 areas, you're left with about less than 2% between federal aid, Medicare, and our local sources, which encompasses things like non-resident tuition, rent, the interest income, sold in kind of scrap, things like that. In this draft, we've assigned $750,000 of fund balance, which represents 2.06% of the total budget. Our big ticket items, as mentioned a few minutes ago, we've added the American Rescue Plan funded teaching positions of $487,000, occupational education is up $56,000, health insurance $183,000, transportation $253,000, which are pretty much the big ticket ones there. Our remaining unknowns, when I did this draft, we still had final state aid on there, and discussion of what was going on at that point in time. There was a budget extender on the 19th. Next slide is capital outlay. We have a $100,000 capital outlay proposed in this budget. If you do any Outside work, you need to have a minimum of 10,000 on the inside, so we have classroom flooring replacement at Wheelock School, and the balance will go to the architect's fees and blacktop replacement in the parking lot at Wheelock School. Tax levy limit, our limit was set at 1.71% or 288,000. This draft is not 171%, it's 1.71%. If the budget were to be twice defeated by the voters, we would have to comply with the administrative cap. We're currently 15,000 under that cap, so we would be good in that scenario. Next few slides are some comparative data. This is taking a look at the tax levy limit since its inception, 2012-13. You can see that each of the years up to this proposal, with the X's, we were at or below the cap. This year we're at the cap. A 5% average of our tax levy is 1.34%. A 5-year average of the tax levy limit is 2.2%. So we've been under that in the average over 5 years. Just some comparative data here to show our total budget changes and percent increase or decrease over the last 7-8 years. The next slide is a similar one showing our tax levy. You can see we've done 1.50101. Last year a little bit of an outlier, 2.99, and this year we're at 1.71. 7-year average increase of that is 1.17%. The 3-year average increase is 1.9%. And then this is a look at our projected tax rates based on the state today. And these will fluctuate depending on equalization rate changes and assessed value changes in each of the towns. And you can see how that occurred on the middle column and the right-hand column from last year, from the budget vote to the final levy. Town of Pomfret moved just a couple cents, but Sheridan was down almost $2. So just kind of give you an idea where we're at today. $1 per thousand in the town of Pomfret is 132,000. 1% on the tax levy would be 168,000. And 1% on spending would be 364,000.
Any final questions from the board?
Yes. John, what would be the effect to the tax levy if we were to utilize $80,000 of the $280 plus thousand dollars that we're seeing in revenue from interest, and then also taking a tenth or $50,000 out of the tax ratio for a total of $130,000? What would that reduce our tax levy to?
1 second, I can tell you that. That would take your estimated tax levy of 1.71 as it sits down to 0.94.
Okay. And so would that be reducing anything out of our budget as far as what's expected? We would still be whole, right?
Well, what you would be doing is, you have two parts to that. One, you would be taking and applying 80,000 more to the revenue line for the interest income. Because you're not really taking it out, you're changing what you're estimating to be a higher number. And then the tax tertiary piece, which I would advise not to touch the reserves if we don't have to, we'd be needing to have, I believe the tax tertiary requires a board motion for removal to bring it back to the general fund, and then you would have to apply it against an additional line item. But likely the unassigned fund balance.
Another avenue for the tax share short would be to slide some of that over to the capital fund, where we get for every $1 from the tax year short, we get $4 in capital, increase. Like for every $100,000, I think in our capital project, the slides, it said $100,000, and the capital fund gives us $425,000 towards our capital project. So that'd be another thing we could do with the
Right,
tax
and
year
if
short.
you were to, at some point, if you were to pull that back and then reassign it, obviously that would be a benefit to the project, because any dollar you can apply off your reserve reduces something else along the way in the project. But again, if you're removing from tax certiorari and you apply it to capital reserve, then it's gonna be gone, as opposed to remaining in some form that you can still use it.
So we have $500,000 in there in the tax certiorari, which is quite a bit. I had a question about, so I'm just trying to catch up with what you said here, and you got down to 1.71, John. That came from BOCES, reducing the BOCES line?
Actually, it was about 45 line items altogether. A number of them were BOCES. We had a couple changes in our special education population where I was able to pull back on some of the services I had originally in there. And so that would be across the board in BOCES in terms of the classroom spot that they assigned, the classroom aid if they had it, and then across OT, PT, speech, social work, and counseling. So there was some tweaking there. We also got the BOCES bill with the most current listing, so I was able to pull a couple things off there that had changed how the students are being serviced at BOCES. And then I went through and took a look at a lot of other lines and said, okay, now that we have the March projection and I'm using the January projection in this bill, what can I do here? And
So, and the other thing I noticed is you went from 800,000 to 750,000.
yeah, again, it was taking a look at what had occurred and could I move a little more to try to lower that. The thought process being that we're tracking about 750 to 800,000 now, covering our million. And so if we move that forward and things go good next year, we might be able to bring that up slightly and get us a little bit in that 4 or 5 range instead of the 3 range.
Right.
It's a gamble, but
Yeah, okay, yeah. Get our reserves up. Yeah.
So, I guess to Steve's point, looking at the tax certiorari piece, taking just a slice of it, 50,000, and applying it towards the tax levy currently, and then also looking at the $280,000 earned in interest from the tax money that we have invested in there, for a total of 130,000, would be a good piece as to the capital project coming up and an increase in taxes, or a possibility of increasing taxes. And so what we're doing is being cognizant of that whole piece, just taking a slice, applying it, and seeing a good balance for our taxpayers. So, I haven't spoke to any of my board members, but is that something, and how would that go about if we had some interest in that?
well, the first part is that it would change some of the things that I've given the board tonight, so I need a few minutes to go make sure that's all good. Secondly, again, you're touching that reserve, so that I would have to find out, which would be a long process, but I have to see what the exact requirement is for removal of any money from the tax certiorari reserve. I believe it's just a board motion, but I'm not 100% positive that, we don't do it very often, so that would be a factor there as well.
Mr. Gross, could you speak to, so the interest income, where it goes if we don't apply it to this year's budget? So just to be clear on where that would go. And then the second piece on the tax reserves. You seem some hesitation on taking that down, so maybe just give a little bit perspective on that.
The first part would be that you're going to, for the interest income, when Mr. Hawks referring to 280,000, that's not going to impact the 24-25 budget. But if things track like they are now, the potential is there that we have similar dollars next year. So instead of budgeting the number that I have, we budget a higher number. And at the end of the day, you would make potentially less fund balance off of that if you exceed it. The money that's in the interest income now goes towards your fund balance, which is covering your 750, which is covering your million. So in one form or another, he's correct in how he spoke, but current year doesn't affect next year. It would just affect our budget for next year. Hesitancy with reserves. I'm not hesitant to change the tax certiorari. I'm hesitant to change the tax certiorari and then use it for something. Mindset is we took a big drop over the last 2 years for various reasons, and to continue to see a little bit of erosion, I think, coming off this year. It concerns me. That's my job for it to concern me. In my mind, I would rather see taking a look at the tax certiorari to determining a more effective number there, and then saying, should we apply that, since we still have the ability to, against the teacher's retirement reserve, or the employee's retirement reserve, or even the possibility of something going towards capital reserve. I fear with the capital reserve is as much as we need it for a future project, you're also then eroding
Right.
that dollar, so it's just, that's
Mr. Forbes, can you speak to the largest hit we've had against that tax certiorari? Like, that's in, we hang on to that
since
money.
we created that, we've not had a hit against it.
Since we created it,
We
we've
created
not
at the
had-
time that we had a
Had
different
an
situation
issue.
that we had to borrow money to cover. Since we created that, we've not had it.
And what led us to have to create that?
Probably at that time it was a discussion with the auditor, and then it was brought forward to the board that, hey, if we had this happen, how do we prevent it from happening again? Create a reserve to use it against the regulator.
And was that carriage house? Would that,
Carriage house was part of it. There were a
Part of it.
couple of the college housing units at the same time. There's several $100,000 in it.
and it was several $100,000. Okay.
But part of that, there's a couple ways the assessments go. One is that it's a future situation. So they say, okay, we agree with your grievance, but we're not going to go back, and from this point forward, we're reducing your assessment by X amount of dollars this year, maybe a different amount next year. And then there's other cases where they go back and say, we took a look at this, and you've been calculating this wrong for 5 years because we took down two buildings and you still have it in the value. Now they're looking for a refund, and they're looking for the reduction going forward.
So if you took a massive hit in that, say $500,000,
Yeah.
could you replenish it the following year? Like if you took out, if you
Well,
had,
once something like that happens, then it kind of flows through your whole tax levy process, so it would change people's rates and so forth. And then on the expense side, you're paying off the note over a 5-year period, and that was also budgeted through the general budget.
So if I could, just to put that tax certiorari in perspective, I don't have a problem discussing it if we're looking at moving it from that reserve to the budget. However, if we want to have a discussion on long-term what to do with that, I'd rather delay that from this budget presentation. This meeting is for the approval of the budget. Determining what to do with that tax certiorari, that's for another day. And I think that it's going to take more time to analyze and to get our thoughts around it, get the thought process of what to do with it appropriately, so that, as Mr. Forbes says, we're not just spending it, we're putting it to the best use.
So I don't think we should put that to toward the budget.
So my next comment on that is, as far as this budget is concerned, this board took a very informal attitude several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, when we had a fairly large fund balance, that we were close to that 12%, maybe higher than, and we took the informal agreement, that we were going to try to stay around 8%. If our reserves were more than 8%, we could cut back on our tax levy to our taxpayers. But if our reserves get below 8%, which is where we're at right now, we would go to the tax limit and try and build back and hit that, try to get to that goal of 8%. Because I think that it's important for this district to have a safety net, a safe amount of reserves. And even though I'm all in favor of helping our taxpayers out, keeping our taxes as low as possible, I think that right now our reserves are in such a place that we can't, I don't think that the 1.71 is a burden to our taxpayers.
I would agree with you, but I would also agree with you, it's our taxpayers' dollars earning interest.
Yes.
That's being applied to the fund balance, and I'm not saying apply the $280,000. I understand the discussion on the $50,000 piece. I thought that was from our workshop, something that we could apply, and it was a slice. It was a slice of $500,000. So that point, I would definitely like to say that I would support, and I would like to make a motion, if I could get it seconded, to take 80,000 of the 280. That's still putting 200,000 in the fund balance of interest made on taxpayers' money. Take 80,000 and apply it towards the tax levy this year. And I think it's only reasonable.
I think I would just like to share, one of the things I think is challenging about, we're talking about money that the last dollar of this will be spent a year and a couple months from now. A lot of things happen in between that time. This year, because of need, we added an E&L teacher right at the beginning of the year. We added a special education teacher right at the beginning of the year, which was money well spent. And both of those people did a fantastic job and provided a great service to our district. But there are those things that happen that I think we've been thoughtful about this budget. We've had several drafts. We had plenty of time to bring items to the table for consideration. So just my thought is, it's been a thoughtful process. We stay where we are. And down the road, there might be a time when we might be able to offer something back. Just my opinion as superintendent. I recognize I'm not part of the board. I recognize I don't have a vote.
So can I ask you a question to what your statement was?
Sure.
Would the $80,000 being used from the $280,000 to reduce the tax levy affect expenditures that are budgeted right now?
I don't think so. The problem is what would be unexpected along the way.
And we have other reserves. We're only talking $80,000 that I think would be a goodwill towards using. If I was looking at giving money to someone and they said that, you need interest on it, can I have a portion of that? That's all we're doing. And I think it's reasonable. And I don't think that it was brought up before this point. And whether it's last minute or if it's done weeks before, I definitely wanted to make sure that we could get down to the tax levy. And that wasn't something we learned about until just recently. Correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So at that point is when it really became an important piece to add to the ask of my fellow board members to consider using $80,000 of money made in interest from the taxpayers' funds to apply towards the tax levy this year. And you can always add it next year, right? So I would like to make a motion to use an additional $80,000 of funds, fund balance. Would that be correct, John?
Well, what we would do is probably adjust the revenue category, increase it by 80,000, which accomplishes the same thing.
And I hope somebody would second it.
So, okay, so we have how do we want to do this? Because we're really doing a budget presentation. We don't have the budget on the floor, but yet you've got a motion. I will ask just one question, Mr. Forbes. If we do as Mr. Hawk has proposed, our budget amount is reduced from the 36,428,315 down by 80,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor.
So let me ask you a question. I wasn't looking at reducing the budget. All I was talking about doing was increasing our revenues to decrease the tax levy.
Mr. Hawk is correct. It will not affect the total value of the budget. It will affect the distribution of the tax levy and the revenue. So the tax levy will go down.
Okay, but it would reduce the tax levy.
Yes.
Can I ask a question before? So we were sitting at 12%. We had this 8%. Am I correct that we're at about 4% now?
A little bit below that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And just for a point of clarification, the original question to Mr. Hawk involved 130,000. Now we're talking about 80,000, so that would take you from 171 to 1.23.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Hawk has put a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? Okay, I don't hear a second, Mr. Hawk.
It's just fine with me.
Okay. Any other questions on the budget?
Just, so John, what is our, for the 5-year average, what's our tax increase over 5 years? It changed, right, because we went down 1.71.
I did it as 3 years and 7 years. So
Oh,
3 years
and
is
7 years?
1.9 and 7 years is 1.17.
Okay.
And that's on the second to last page of the slide, page 11.
Any other questions? Okay, so if I could get a motion to approve the proposed budget, to accept the proposed budget for the 24-25 school year in the amount of $36,428,315, which will be voted upon at the annual meeting of voters scheduled for May 21st, 2024, from 2 to 9 o'clock in the high school cafeteria. If I could have a motion on that, please.
So moved.
Mr. Johnston, and a second. Ms. Paul Fortner. Any questions, discussions on that?
My only comment would be that we've, at the last minute before returned monies, we've lowered the tax rate effectively that way. And I think it bit us in the rear a little last year, this year. It's still biting us in the rear. So that's my hesitancy, Tom, just so you know where I'm coming from.
Well,
I'm
for
hesitant to
continuing
put money
conversation
back.
on that, I would just like to say that the last 2 years, according to the audit, of over $1 million of expenditures surpassing our revenues, we have received our largest amount of aid from the state, record amounts from the state. We were normally seeing $600,000 from the state, and now we're seeing dollar amounts of 2.1 and 1.7. And it seems as if we have showed a reduction in our fund balance. We have showed that we are spending the taxpayers' dollars, because all we're talking about is an annual budget. We're not talking about a budget that is projecting 10 years down the road. We're only talking about 1 year. And it's always difficult because you don't have your full understanding of your external auditor's piece until October. So to that, I thought that was a reasonable request to my fellow board members. And I understand what you're saying, but I see a little bit further into it, having looked at the history of the numbers.
I do have to add, Tom, that, okay, yes, we did get a 1.1 increase in million in foundation aid. It was good. But we had a 1.4 million increase in salaries and benefits. So we've had that surpassed our foundation aid increase. So inflation is real, and it is hitting us.
So I disagree with you there, okay? Because looking at, let's see if we got our numbers here. We've seen a reduction in benefits as far as our instruction and employee benefits. Okay, instruction was down like 1.3, and benefits were up 800,000. So we had a $534,000 to the plus.
I'm looking at slide.
But I'm looking at the numbers of the external auditors against the numbers that we project. Okay, so those numbers were audited. And I don't disagree that you're not looking at the same numbers.
Any questions, comments? further. With that, Ms. Morrison, if we could have a roll call vote?
By all means. First on the list, Mr. Aldrich.
Yes.
Ms. Paul Courtnall.
Yes.
Ms. Gallo.
Yes.
Ms. Hahn.
Yes.
Mr. Hawk.
Yes.
Mr. Johnston.
Yes.
And Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
Passes 7 for the ayes, 0 for the nays.
Thank you, everyone. Next, we have the approval of the Fredonia Central School District Property Tax Report Card for the 2024-2025 proposed budget. We have a motion to bring that to the floor for approval. Ms. Cullen. And a second.
Second.
Ms. Hahn. So the estimated, the proposed 24-25 budget of $36,428,315. The percentage spending increase is 5.13. The estimated tax levy is $17,160,211. The percentage increase in the tax levy to the tax levy is 1.71%, and the projected K-12 enrollment for the coming year is 1,417. Any comments, questions? Mr. Ziliak, Mr. Forbes, beyond that?
I think it was all in the presentation.
Comments from the board? If not, all those in favor of approving that property tax report card signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of a resolution regarding our capital outlay project for the 24-25 budget year. If I could have a motion to bring that to the floor, please.
So moved.
Ms. Paul Fortman, the second.
Second.
Ms. Gallo. Mr. Ziliak, I'll have you go through these numbers, please.
Yeah, so again, we're futuring out to our next outlay project, $100,000 project. Two things that came to the forefront in recent discussions were the accessibility of our playgrounds, especially for current students attending Fredonia schools, and by the time this construction would happen, those students would be around the main campus. So we're looking at adding equipment that would offer that accessibility to all students, but particularly the students that are enrolled right now. Again, as Mr. Forbes always says, if we're doing work outside, we need to do at least $10,000 inside, so there'd be some flooring attached to that, and rooms that have been designated in need. And this resolution, straight from our attorney, as you can tell by the length and the wording of it, is really about the environmental concerns and the seeker process, and making sure that anything we might do attached to this process would not in any way damage the environment or have some type of unintended consequences. So this would give permission for this to move forward and have those studies done.
Who actually performs the seeker? I'm sorry.
The seeker guy?
DHC, it's state agencies.
It's state agencies. I know that it's up to the towns in these certain situations, but okay. Any other questions? Okay, that's all right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the creation of the position of a licensed practical nurse, LPN, within the SSSA bargaining unit. If I could have a motion to bring that to the floor, please.
So moved.
Mr. Marshall, and the second.
Second.
Mr. Hawk. Mr. Ziliak, explaining this one, please.
Yeah, so we've been talking about this for quite some time. This was part of the SSSA adjustments that have come out of the concerns of our nurses and then some reconfiguration of the contract for our support staff. Part of this was we have had, over the last several years, a person who was certified as an LPN, but we did not have an LPN position within the contract or attached to the association. So this makes good on the fact that we will have the position, and later on we'll see a person to fill the position. So
Putting it to use right away.
we're happy to have that in place with the SSSA.
Great. Any questions on how that's working? Okay. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. So next, we have, if I could have a motion to approve the appointment of Jamie Polhamus, who holds professional certification in school district leader and school building leader as a permanent certification in special education to a probationary position of middle school principal.
So moved.
Second.
I didn't even ask.
Had to get it ahead of myself.
Second, please.
Well, if I had the opportunity, I would have, okay? Mr. Ziliak.
So as if you're paying attention to our posting and some of our hiring process, we've had an opening for middle school principal, and over the last week or so, we had building level interviews. Thank you for everyone who participated in that, as well as final round interviews at the district office. Thank you to people who participated in that. And throughout that process, you hope that one candidate will become clear that they are the best fit for the position. And lucky enough for us, one person, through her demonstrated commitment and dedication to the district, but also the things that she shared throughout that process, the ideas that she has, how she sees the district moving forward, how she sees the middle school moving forward, being a collaborative part of the team, really engaging stakeholders in conversations about where we are in our current state and how do we get to our desired state, how do we support our mission, vision, and core beliefs. Jamie Polhamus certainly stood out above the crowd, which resulted in us offering her the position and her thankfully accepting. So thank you so much, Jamie, for everything you've done up until this point, and we're excited about what's to come moving forward. You know, we're always not afraid to put somebody on the spot, so do you have any comments for the group?
Thank you. I appreciate your confidence in me. I appreciate the continued support from the district and from the board. This is a perfect example of one of the reasons that I moved home for. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to good times ahead.
Any questions, comments from the board?
I would just say I was lucky enough to be part of Ms. Polhamus's original interview process when she came to us, and I'm just thrilled to see her moving into this position.
Thank you.
She's done better. This time progresses.
Can we clap?
What?
She has approved.
Any comments?
Just that we appreciate everything you have done during this difficult time, and we look forward to the future with you.
Thank you.
I was part of the interview process, and I guess I was just very pleased and impressed with your understanding of the challenges that middle school creates. And it's a transition, and not only just from elementary to high school, but it's a transition as far as students' educational, emotional, physical progression. And I appreciated that especially, but I think your grasp of the whole challenge ahead and the position that the importance of the position that you have stuck out to me. So I appreciate that. So with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. have, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the approval of the appointment of Catherine Brown to probationary teaching position in the science tenure area. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Ms. Paula Fortman, and a second.
Second.
Ms. Gallo. Mr. Ziliaks.
Yeah, as you know, it seems like a long time ago now. Unfortunately, Rhonda Lee submitted her letter of resignation for retirement earlier in the year, which created an opening. We appreciate the high school, Mr. Paschke, Mr. Lauer running an interview process at the building level, and then that also coming to the district office. Again, a lot of good science candidates out there. And Catherine, or Katie, demonstrated, I think, for at least in the final round interview, how she approaches earth science, how she really hones in on those skills and learning targets that are attached to the Regents exam for learning at science, how she really tries to engage students in that process, how she takes a very logical and sequential approach to preparing students for that exam, and really enjoys and has a passion for what she does. She comes to us with 9 years of experience, and I think that experience will be very helpful in not only becoming a productive part of our existing science department, but also paying off in the results for our students. So we are happy to bring Katie on board. And Mr. Paschke, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to bring her on board. She was actually a long-term sub here in the past, so we've had some experience working with her. We know what she's capable of, and we feel confident she's going to do a fantastic job for us.
Any questions from the board? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of a 3-year employment contract between Fredonia Central School District and Kimberly Bingenheimer, the Assistant School Business Executive. If I could have a motion to bring that to the floor, please.
So,
Mr. Hawk?
Second.
Ms. Gallo? Mr. Ziliaks?
Yeah, I think a lot of people know Kim has been in our business office for the last several years. I think Kim's time here has been marked by extreme hard work. Her really thinking about how we can do things differently, how we can be more efficient, how we can approach things in a way that streamlines our processes. And she was a great addition to our business office prior to me getting here, but I've appreciated getting to know her and working with her. She is also very task-oriented, so if Kim gets something that needs to be done, that absolutely happens. She was extremely helpful in negotiating or working through a lot of the COVID regulations or the adjustments along the way with COVID, and really being thoughtful, very organized, and very process-oriented in those situations. This contract is well-deserved. John Forbes, anything you want to share since you work with her more closely on a daily basis?
yeah, she's been a great addition to the office. Kind of a little bit of an offset to me, where I'm maybe just a little conservative. She's not quite as conservative. So kind of working through that, but it's been nice to have somebody to bounce things off of, and she's done a very good job for us.
Questions from the board? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. So the board is reserved this time to hear comments from the audience on any topic. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, and limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Is there anyone who would like to address the board tonight? Yes.
Thank you.
We have a microphone, sir, if you'd like to state your name and address.
Sure. I appreciate being called sir. My name's Mike Bobsane, 82 Newton Street, Fredonia. It's such a pleasure to be here. I served 12 years on the school board, and to see you all go through the process tonight of adopting a budget, it's so significant. I mean, it's one of the most important things that you do after, appointing a superintendent or hiring your administrators and bringing new teachers in. I'm running for the New York State Assembly, and I'm here because I'm going around to all of the school districts, or as many as I can get to, over the next several months. To me, public education has been the most important and most significant gift that we can give our kids. New York State plays an outsized role in public education and the funding. I mean, as you talked about it tonight. I do want to just point out, I do appreciate the discussion that took place concerning the budget, but also I just want to point out the significance of Mr. Hawk in terms of offering that suggestion, not getting a second, but then voting for this budget. I mean, it says a great deal about certainly Mr. Hawk, but also just you operating as a school board and how important that is for this district. I'm here together with my spouse, Susan Parker. She's your Chautauqua County legislator. She represents this area of the school, half of the village, and also a portion of Dunkirk. She was a registered nurse here for 22 years. And it's wonderful to see that you are recognizing the significance of that position too, and the health office generally. During her time here, you know, her district office was a refuge. It was a refuge for a lot of kids, and I'm sure that continues today. And so I appreciate that. It was great too coming in and seeing Amy, and I apologize. I remembered Amy's first name and I don't know the last name. But during my time here, we hired Amy. She was our first social worker. And that was significant. You know, things have changed so dramatically relative to schools and education. And I just want you to know how important I think it is, and how important it is that you have good representation in Albany. And that is one thing that I would want to bring to this district and to the Assembly District generally. A real voice for teachers, a real voice for schools. We've had a drop in enrollments throughout the Assembly District. That's a concern. And I want to try to help use resources the best way possible to benefit our students, and thank you for that time. I would say this too. This Saturday is the first day of the Quest. I think it's my 28th or 29th year. I hope Mr. Ziliaks comes out again. We were really concerned last year or 2 years ago about hypothermia. He wasn't dressed properly. And you're all welcome out there. And it's great too to see a student representative. I think it's Ms. Drennan. It's great to have a student representative. And again, thank you for all you do. I can't believe that you gave me 5 minutes. We used to only give people 3 minutes. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bobbsey. Your comments are always appreciated. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? If not, Mr. Ziliaks.
Yeah, we're going to try to keep it moving right along, but there are a couple things I just wanted to highlight. Earlier this evening, in between 4 and 6, we did meet regarding our capital project that we are hoping to take to the community and voters sometime in December of 2024. This is a work in progress. We got a lot of feedback from Young and Wright regarding our building condition survey. We started to hone in on some focus areas, things like, you know, those maintenance items that we need to take care of as a district, like roofs or mechanical systems. We've also honed in on athletic facilities, our music suite, and accommodating the record numbers in our music department, playgrounds, and a couple of other items involving air conditioning, and so on. just want to let everybody know we continue to work hard and try to be as thoughtful as possible as we approach next steps and really starting to put a frame around what exactly this project might look like and also how much it might cost to the district and possibly to our taxpayers. So all that is in play. We keep moving forward. I just raised that as awareness. Also in the background, we continue to have a group, a district planning team that is working on long-term planning. We've met 3 times at this point. We have another meeting tomorrow night, and kind of a similar process. We gathered a lot of information from our SWOT analysis, again, looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to our district, and then started to think about, based on that information, what seemed to be some of those focus areas that are in common across all stakeholder groups. We had about 300 people participate in that survey. That included faculty, staff, students, community members, BOE members, administrators. So really a nice cross-section. We're beginning to narrow that list as well. We'll have information coming forward here as well. I also wanted to touch briefly on that we received, I received, and I was asked to share a nice letter from the Helmer family with some concerns about people being able to get to our softball and baseball field who might not be as mobile as they once were. And we certainly recognize the challenges there. Please know that we're more than willing to be as accommodating as possible. If you find yourself in that situation or you're struggling with this, I ask you to reach out to me directly or our athletic director, Greg Lauer. In this case, he's made some accommodations for the people they're specifically referring to. We don't want anyone to feel like they can't get to the field. We do have a few different options. Some of them are a little bit more involved than others, but when there's a will, there's a way. So please reach out to us if that's a struggle. We will do everything we can to assist and help. And I appreciate the Helmers reaching out to us, making us aware of this. This does come up from time to time, but it hasn't come up recently. And we appreciate them bringing this back to the forefront of a conversation. And I also appreciate Mr. Lauer, within literally an hour of this communication, had a solution and a resolution already in place. So thanks to him. Lastly, just as an awareness tonight, not so much to delve into a discussion, Mr. Paschke and I wanted to make you aware that at least at the high school level, there's been some discussion about cell phones and what the future of cell phones might look like in our district. And I just wanted him very briefly to share kind of an overview, summary of that conversation, just as an awareness, and eventually, potentially, more information might come forward to the board. And remember that something like this would probably mean an adjustment to our code of conduct, which eventually the board does approve. Mr. Paschke.
Thanks. I just finished reading a book called The Anxious Generation, and it goes through incredibly good research and very recent research. This book just came out regarding cell phones, and it matched very closely the most recent NISBA newspaper that came out, the front page article on the success that schools have had with having no cell phones in the building at all versus kind of a modified thing that schools have tried where sometimes it's like teacher discretion, or there's no cell phones except during lunch periods, or just during the hallways, or maybe just study halls. The research has shown that really none of those have been successful in curbing the problems that occur on the daily with cell phones. And just the tons of research on the addiction and the problems that social media causes with kids, just with all of their anxiety. And as you can see, I think several times I've mentioned how many kids have been absent from school, and a lot of it is due to anxiety. And some of those things, I can't say that it's all cell phones, but that's one thing that we're going to start looking at our building, and want to move forward with getting stakeholders and just discussing what it will look like if we make some changes. And then we'll keep the board updated as we go.
That's an interesting topic, and I'm sorry to make this a discussion, but you have come to the board in the past saying how necessary social workers are or someone to help with the anxiety of students, and yet we're finding that maybe it's cell phones and social media that is adding to this. And I read some similar things. I'm not sure if it's the same author, but it's very interesting that the need has increased as cell phones are being used extensively. It's very interesting.
Agreed.
Yes.
And we all are now one-to-one throughout the district for students with computers. It used to be the fact that we were filling in sometimes where like, oh, we don't have enough laptops for everybody. Let's, have you guys use your phones if you have them, and that's really not necessary anymore.
Yeah.
Just real quick, I just wanted to, and thanks to Mr. Bobson for recognizing school nurses. You see a couple names on our agenda in consent tonight. Brandy Kacklemeyer is returning to the district and going to be joining us. Again, Courtney Epke is officially going into an LPN position now that one has been created. We have Benita Costello, who will be joining us at the elementary school. And there's some transition here with people leaving place of employment then coming on board here. We're excited to be fully staffed in our nursing department and also have the opportunity for a fresh start and kind of a new beginning as a group with some really skilled people on board to match the people we already have on board who are absolutely skilled and have been doing a great job. And I just want to recognize the efforts here, and we're moving forward in a positive direction, and that'll be a really great thing for our district and for our students. So,
Yes. Agreed. Thank you. Sure. The Chautauqua County School Board Association has its honor night honoring Chautauqua County's best and brightest graduates. That is on May 28th at the Chautauqua Harbor Hotel. If any board member would like to attend that, we have, typically they have their valedictorians, salutatorians that they highlight and honor that night. So if anyone would like to, please contact Ms. Morrison by the 15th of May. Our annual budget district meeting, where we will go over our budget like tonight with the public, will be on May 7th, 2 weeks from tonight, 6 o'clock, right here in the high school library. Immediately following that will be our regular scheduled Board of Education meeting, 6:30, right after the budget meeting. With that, Mr. Johnston.
I was wondering how you're going to handle that. Darn. I'll have to move again. Great discussion tonight. As you know, my granddaughter, she's in UPK, and she came all excited to dinner last night talking about Earth Day. And she gave me this pen, and she made it. And she's spouting off all these things related to Earth Day. So props to, again, the Wheelock, and she's enjoying it. So thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Marshall.
Welcome, Ms. Polanis. Great discussion tonight. We have lots of work ahead of us.
Yes. That's it. With the capital project. Yes. Ms. Hahn?
Congratulations to Ms. Palpinas, and thank you for coming, Mr. Bobson. I'm excited about the capital project meeting that we had. We have our work cut out for us, but some exciting potential there, and we're just hoping that the community can support us so that we can support our students.
Thank you. Mr. Hawk?
I want to say excellent job to the music department. And what a fine job to the kids and the staff. Kudos.
Yes. Ms. Balforna?
Every time you get over here, it's, we're pretty much covered, so thanks. I think, welcome to Ms. Malhamus, good discussion tonight, excited about the capital project, all that good stuff.
Please go.
I would say all the same, welcome to Ms. Paulamus, and I would agree with Mrs. Hahn that we welcome the community to come to the workshops about the capital project because it's exciting, but we need everybody's interest and support, so.
We need their input too. We need direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Tracy?
We have a home flag football game tomorrow, 7 o'clock against a few, so y'all should go.
Are you excited by any chance?
A little bit.
A little bit? Are you having fun?
I love it.
Great, great. Good. Mr. Paskey?
Just wanted to jump on the high school band wagon, if you will. Sorry. But our band went to Chicago, as you know. They competed against multiple bands, and they took first place in their division in Chicago. But then on top of that, this year they earned a very prestigious award that was the best overall band of all of the bands in any category whatsoever. They were the winners. So it was very exciting, and it's great to give them recognition for that. Also, I just wanted to give a shout out to Dave Dens, who brought in the Holocaust speaker. We were planning that it was going to be a Holocaust survivor, but as you know, they're all getting older, so we ended up getting the daughter of a Holocaust survivor who was equally as riveting and had a lot of stories to share, and the students were excellent. I was really pleased with our student response to that. Additionally, to Kat Beyer, who brought in the Hang Up and Drive presentation, which was on distracted driving, a husband and wife team who were in an accident on their college graduation day. The wife's, both her parents were killed in the accident, and she was left paralyzed on the left side. And it's just that the kids were just like, wow. It was very intense, but great presentation. So thanks to everybody that participated in those. And I'll keep it brief. That's it.
Mr. Drollinger,
Thank
what's
you.
going on in the elementary school today?
Thursday, for the third year in a row, we're welcoming the African dance troupe, and they're doing a whole school presentation for us, but then they're staying for the high school, middle school to do like a push-in for the music classes, so that's really exciting for the kids. Our readathon concludes May 3rd with a big celebration, so there's like a teacher talent show to reward the kids. It's going to be wild. I'm going to be put on stage. We're going to do something fun. So you can come. You're welcome to come. So it should be fun. But thank you to our PTO for doing that. And we've begun the process of reviewing different reading curriculums with the help of Dr. Margie Wright. And I'm excited to pilot a few programs next year, and then 2 years from now, hopefully adopt a new reading program. So we're excited.
I look forward to that.
Yep.
Yeah. Ms. Paulanos?
Yes, so today we started the first day of New York State assessments over the computer with ELA day 1, day 2 tomorrow, and then math next week. Heart and Soul, or Girls on the Run, is up and running. I was trying to...
She beat you.
With their 5K culminating in May. And as Mr. Bobstein said, our hikers are off on their first one-day trek on Saturday.
Exciting. Ms. Farrow?
Hi. I don't really have a whole lot, but I did want to let you guys know, and hopefully you'll attend, that on Thursday, 2 days from now at 5 o'clock in Dobbs Hall, there is a big basketball game. It's Fredonia versus Dunkirk Unified. And that event is supported by the athletic department at SUNY Fredonia, so all the teams turn out. It's really an exciting event, a lot of just fun-filled, very electric environment, so hopefully you can go.
Thursday at 5.
5.
At Dodds Hall.
Dodds Hall Gym.
It was great last year.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Ms. Piper?
So I'm going to piggyback on Mr. Johnston's Earth Day theme, and we are having success with our selling of the magnets and pins that all of our pre-K students have made. So I got a pack of magnets, I can't remember where so he's showing me up, but they're magnificent. The kids are loving it. They've enjoyed being outside the last couple of days, gardening, getting in the soil, looking for worms and whatnot, and just getting their outdoor classroom ready again for the spring. So it's been really fun to watch them and how excited they are. We're also focusing on literacy. We have the United Way Day of Literacy coming up this Friday. We have lots of volunteers come from the community that come and read to all of our classrooms, and they kindly give each student a book to take home. And they also give books in Spanish as well for those students that are Spanish speakers. So thanks to United Way for doing that again this year. And May 3rd is our Read the Day away. So we're going to be spending the day reading. We're inviting guest readers to come in. So if anybody would like to come in and read at WheeLac to any of our students or classes, you'd be welcome to come. But we're going to spend the day reading the day away.
Oh,
I believe
That would
that
be-
most of you came last year.
that
when
would
we
be
had
very
our guest readers.
interesting again. Yeah,
There you go.
that was fun. Yeah. Mr. Forbes, are you gonna go read to the Wheelock School? Your budget report, right?
I'll take up a collection to get John there.
Learn all math they need to know.
Nothing bad tonight, huh? Well, you had the big show, so.
Other than just, of course, the reminder of the big budget meeting coming up on May 7th, to piggyback on Mr. Hawk and Mr. Paschke, I was fortunate enough to be one of the chaperones for the Windy City Classic Band Trip. And Mr. Bennett and the students are amazingly talented and gifted, and they're wonderful. But beyond that, for any of you who have ever chaperoned anything that involves teenagers, I can guarantee you it was nothing like what we experienced. 50 teenagers in the city of Chicago, not one discipline issue, nothing. Our bus driver literally got a souvenir from medieval times and had us all sign of how the kids signed the crown, because she's never had a bus behave like that before. So on top of them being incredibly talented, they're also just amazing human beings, and I thought that was
Very good.
really cool.
Very good. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's good to hear good news.
It is. Other than that, I'm done.
Okay. If that's it, being no further business, if I could have a motion to adjourn. Mr. Hawk, and a second. Ms. Paul. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned at 7:23.